Beneath an ominous orange sky, the shattered skyscrapers of Radiance stood like broken giants, shrouded in radioactive dust. Amidst the ruins emerged Izzy, her torn radiation suit flapping defiantly, eyes fierce with determination. Behind her, survivors trembled beneath gas masks, their whispered prayers pinned on her courage, and on Bolt, a former killing machine reborn as a protector. Together, human resilience and robotic loyalty would rise from the ashes, proving that even in humanity's darkest hour, hope can ignite brighter than ever before. Radiance had once been the crown jewel of American prosperity, a glittering metropolis of towering skyscrapers and bustling avenues. Now, under a haunting, perpetual twilight painted in shades of radioactive orange, the city lay in ruin, skeletal remains of buildings casting long, eerie shadows over streets thick with ash and silence. Isabella, Izzy, Rourke stood amidst this desolation. The once bright yellow of her radiation suit now faded and ripped, exposing patches of soot-streaked skin beneath. At 27, Izzy possessed the intense, hardened look of someone far older. Her emerald eyes burned fiercely, framed by strands of copper-red hair escaping from beneath a hood. Her stature was lean, yet muscular, a product of endless survival. She carried herself with the unmistakable confidence of a natural leader, tempered by years navigating the deadly maze of Radiance's ruins. Behind Izzy trudged a ragged group of survivors, each face hidden behind bulky gas masks, eyes darting nervously through dusty visors. Jasper Lane, a former firefighter in his mid-30s, broad-shouldered and rugged with closely cropped brown hair, moved protectively near the group's rear, occasionally scanning the ruins with wary hazel eyes. Beside him walked Emma Doyle, 29, a nurse whose once soft demeanor had been sharpened into a calm but steely resolve. Emma was slender, her blonde hair tied back severely, her movements precise and cautious. The air was thick and oppressive, heavy with the metallic tang of radiation and despair. Izzy paused to survey the route ahead, her eyes narrowing. "Keep moving," she said sharply, her voice firm yet reassuring. "We can't afford to stop." Suddenly, from the shadows of a half-collapsed department store, stepped Gideon Voss. He was tall, nearly 6'5", powerfully built, and encased in a black combat suit with intricate steel reinforcements. Gideon's face, rugged and scarred, bore a cruel sneer, his cold gray eyes devoid of empathy. His thick, dark hair was pulled back tightly, emphasizing his harsh features. With a theatrical wave, he revealed his presence. "Isabella Rourke," Gideon drawled mockingly, his voice echoing ominously across the empty street. "Leading your little lambs to slaughter?" Izzy didn't flinch. "Out of our way, Gideon," she warned, her voice ice-cold. "We're not bothering you." Gideon's laughter, dark and humorless, filled the air. "Every move you make bothers me, sweetheart. This city belongs to whoever's strong enough to take it, and that's me." At Gideon's command, from monstrous robotic dogs emerged from behind the rubble. Their bodies were sleek, matte black steel, joints whirring softly with hydraulic precision. Eyes glowing an unsettling crimson, their shoulders bore weaponry systems primed and ready. They prowled forward, mechanical growls vibrating through the quiet street. Izzy's group froze, panic flickering across their masked faces. She raised a steady hand, signaling calm. "Stay close," she whispered firmly. Gideon stepped forward arrogantly. "Give me your supplies, and your people might survive today," he smirked. "Defy me, and my dogs feast." Izzy's jaw tightened. "We don't negotiate with murderers." Gideon shrugged theatrically. "Suit yourself." A piercing siren erupted from the robotic dogs as they lunged. Instinctively, Izzy and her group scattered, ducking into a nearby ruined theater. Izzy vaulted over debris with practiced agility, heart pounding as energy bolts scorched the air around her. Meanwhile, beneath a partially collapsed office building, hidden from the chaos above, Walt Barnes knelt in a dimly lit subterranean bunker. At 72, Walt's wiry frame was bent but resilient, his weathered hands still deft with tools. Sparse gray hair clung stubbornly to his scalp, his deep-set blue eyes intense behind round spectacles. Walt was a meticulous engineer, patient and compassionate, a trait intensified by surviving years of relentless hardship. Dozens of anxious eyes watched Walt from cots scattered around the bunker. Elderly faces lined with worry, children clutching battered toys. Sammy Barnes, Walt's 15-year-old grandson, thin and lanky, stood nervously by his grandfather's side, handing him tools as requested. Sammy had sandy blonde hair, perpetually tousled, and bright blue eyes that mirrored Walt's determination. Their community depended entirely on the air filtration system Walt had crafted, a machine now faltering dangerously. "Is it fixable, Grandpa?" Sammy asked softly, anxiety creeping into his voice. Walt paused, sweat dripping down his brow as he carefully tightened a bolt. "Has to be, Sammy," he murmured reassuringly. "We've got no choice but to fix it." A sudden, sharp alarm from the filtration machine jolted everyone in the bunker, causing murmurs of fear. Walt's eyes widened, his movements accelerating with urgency. "Hold this steady," he instructed Sammy sharply, hands now trembling slightly from the pressure. "If this goes down, we're done." Sammy obeyed instantly, jaw clenched tightly as he held the flashlight. "We'll fix it, Grandpa. We always do." Walt nodded grimly, adjusting wires and circuits with focused intensity. Around them, the survivors watched silently, their breaths collectively held. Seconds ticked, agonizingly slow. Back on the surface, Izzy and her group took shelter inside the ruined theater, breathing heavily. Izzy quickly assessed their situation. The walls were thick enough to block thermal detection, providing temporary refuge from Gideon's robotic hunters. Emma knelt beside her, checking the others for injuries. "How bad is it out there?" she asked quietly, her voice steady despite the circumstances. "Bad enough," Izzy replied, glancing through a cracked wall. Outside, Gideon's mechanical beasts prowled relentlessly, their red eyes scanning methodically. Jasper moved closer, gripping his makeshift weapon, a length of sharpened steel, with tense determination. "We can't hide forever, Izzy." Izzy's gaze hardened. "We won't," she promised firmly. "But right now, surviving is winning." She glanced back at her frightened group, knowing their trust depended entirely on her strength. The oppressive orange light filtered through the theater's broken walls, casting eerie patterns. Izzy knew they couldn't remain hidden for long, but she also knew surrender wasn't an option. "Rest up, everyone," Izzy commanded softly yet firmly. "We move at dusk." Below, Walt finally exhaled deeply as the filtration system's warning lights flickered off, replaced by a reassuring hum. Sammy's shoulders sagged with relief, and murmurs of gratitude echoed around them. "For now, we're safe," Walt announced softly to the hopeful eyes surrounding him. But even as he spoke, his thoughts drifted upward to the surface, to the brave souls who risked everything above the bunker, hoping desperately they were safe. The stark orange glow permeating the ruined cityscape marked another day's passing. For both groups, survival hinged precariously on the decisions made in moments like these, beneath the merciless sky of Radiance. Izzy pressed her back against the crumbling wall of the abandoned theater, breathing shallowly to conserve oxygen. Her emerald eyes narrowed with intensity as she assessed their dire situation. The air inside was stale, tinged with smoke, dust, and a metallic bite of radiation, and the haunting orange glow seeped through cracks in the battered walls, illuminating the terrified faces of her companions. Jasper Lane stood guard near a cracked window, gripping a jagged metal pipe tightly. His muscular frame was taut with alertness, broad shoulders squared protectively. He wore an old firefighter's jacket, the reflective strips long faded, a grim reminder of his past life. Jasper was silent but ever vigilant, his hazel eyes darting methodically, evaluating each shadow beyond the theater's perimeter. Nearby, Emma Doyle knelt calmly beside a frightened young woman, adjusting her gas mask with gentle precision. Her once delicate hands now bore scars, each a testament to the harsh realities they'd endured. Her blonde hair had become matted with ash, yet her voice remained soft, radiating quiet strength as she comforted the trembling survivor. "Are they gone?" Emma asked cautiously, glancing toward Izzy, her blue eyes betraying none of the fear she surely felt. Izzy shook her head. "They're close. Gideon doesn't give up easily." She moved carefully toward Jasper. Peering through the shattered window pane, she caught sight of the menacing robotic dogs prowling silently outside, their red eyes scanning methodically. Izzy noticed their hesitation at the theater's entrance, heads tilting mechanically as if confused. Something was disrupting their sensors. She glanced down and saw her hands covered in cold ash. A sudden realization sparked within her mind. "They can't track heat through thick ash layers," Izzy murmured, her pulse quickening. She turned swiftly toward Jasper and Emma. "Cover your cells with ash. It disrupts their thermal imaging." Without hesitation, the survivors frantically gathered handfuls of ash, coating their suits thoroughly. Jasper assisted the younger, weaker members of their group, his movements calm and reassuring. As they worked, Izzy's mind flashed back to the initial devastation. The sky turning crimson, skyscrapers collapsing, and the immediate silence that followed the nuclear devastation. Her father, a former military officer, had trained her since childhood to endure, to think clearly under pressure, lessons she now relied on heavily. Meanwhile, beneath the ravaged city streets, anxiety surged in the subterranean refuge. Walt Barnes stood motionless, staring at the filtration system's blinking warning lights. The previous temporary fix had failed catastrophically, and now the machinery emitted a mournful groan. Walt's wrinkled face twisted in a grimace of despair. His pale blue eyes, usually calm and reassuring, revealed deep anguish. His gnarled hands, stained by years of mechanical labor, trembled slightly. Sammy Barnes hovered anxiously nearby, shifting nervously on his gangly legs. "Grandpa, is there anything else we can do?" His voice quivered, revealing his youth despite his attempt at bravery. Walt took a slow breath, steadying himself. "There's an old backup generator deeper down. It hasn't been touched since before the war. It's dangerous, but it's our last hope." He glanced at Laura Mitchell, a slender, gray-haired woman with a stern yet kind expression, who stood protectively among the frightened children. Laura had once been a schoolteacher, her nurturing presence an anchor of stability amid chaos. "Laura, watch them closely," Walt instructed gently. Laura nodded solemnly, placing comforting hands on the shoulders of the nearest children. Her calm composure masked the deep concern etched in her kind brown eyes. Taking a rusty flashlight, Walt motioned Sammy to follow him. The two descended cautiously down a narrow metal staircase, each step creaking ominously beneath their weight. Sammy's breath echoed shakily through his gas mask. The oppressive darkness enveloped them, broken only by the flickering beam of Walt's flashlight. Back on the surface, Izzy and her companions, now thoroughly covered in ash, prepared to move. "We can't stay here forever," Izzy whispered urgently. Jasper nodded in agreement, gripping his makeshift weapon tighter. "Follow my lead, stay close, and move silently," Izzy instructed firmly. Carefully, she stepped outside, the others trailing behind her like ghosts through the pale ash. Emerging into the radioactive haze, they moved deliberately, watching the robotic dogs cautiously. The machines hesitated, confused, their sensors failing amidst the thick layer of ash coating their bodies. Izzy's heartbeat thundered in her ears as they slipped quietly between ruins. Suddenly, one robot whirled sharply, its red eyes flaring brighter as it zeroed in on Emma, whose arm brushed against a steel girder, scraping away the protective ash coating. The machine lunged forward, weapon systems whirring into deadly action. "Emma!" Jasper roared, instinctively throwing himself forward to intercept the robotic attacker. With remarkable agility, he swung his pipe, striking the robot's joint, causing it to stumble. Sparks erupted from its side, briefly disorienting its sensors. Izzy seized the opportunity, grabbing Emma's wrist and pulling her quickly into cover. "Stay low," Izzy shouted, her voice fierce with urgency. The other robotic dogs, alerted by the disturbance, advanced menacingly, yet their attacks remained uncertain, disrupted by the interference of ash clouds and broken surroundings. Izzy's mind raced. She knew they had mere moments before the robots recalibrated their systems. Below ground, Walt and Sammy finally reached the old generator room. Walt approached the rusting machinery, anxiety tightening his chest. The equipment, untouched for decades, was encased in cobwebs and corrosion. Walt placed his hand gently on the metal casing, silently praying for a miracle. "Can we fix it, Grandpa?" Sammy's voice was small yet filled with hope. "We have to," Walt murmured resolutely, pulling tools from his worn leather satchel. His hands, guided by decades of expertise, moved swiftly to dismantle and reassemble parts, hoping to coax life into the machine once more. Above, Izzy spotted an alley leading toward a collapsed subway entrance, a potential shelter. "Over there," she commanded sharply, gesturing towards the subway ruins. Her group surged forward desperately. Jasper took rear guard, ensuring no one lagged behind. Izzy glanced back one final time as they plunged into the shadowy descent, watching with grim satisfaction as the robotic dogs faltered once more, sensors overwhelmed by thick layers of dust and ash. The subway entrance swallowed them into its darkness, silence returning momentarily, punctuated only by labored breathing. Izzy quickly surveyed her surroundings, relieved to find temporary safety beneath the rubble-strewn staircase. "We made it, for now," she said breathlessly, her voice weary yet defiant. Below the city's surface, a hopeful hum suddenly filled the bunker as Walt's generator sputtered, then roared to life. Sammy let out an exuberant cry, relief evident in his youthful face. Walt slumped slightly, his aged shoulders shaking with quiet relief. "We did it," Sammy breathed, beaming proudly at his grandfather. Walt smiled gently, pride shining through exhaustion. Yet even in their relief, Walt's thoughts lingered above, concern for those risking their lives on Radiance's deadly surface. Both above and below, survival remained fragile. But for this moment, amidst the ruins and radioactive glow, hope endured, a fleeting breath amid the darkness, a promise that courage could still prevail. Izzy cautiously pushed aside rusting steel beams blocking their path, stepping forward into the abandoned military robot factory. Dust motes swirled lazily in the air, illuminated by shafts of radioactive amber sunlight streaming through the factory's damaged roof. Her eyes widened as she took in the expansive interior, filled with corroded metal husks and dormant machinery. Jasper moved up beside her, his heavy boots echoing faintly against the concrete floor. His face was calm yet wary, his firefighter's instincts constantly assessing threats. Emma stayed near the entrance, helping the others through the precarious rubble with gentle encouragement, her steady presence reassuring the frightened survivors. "We could use this place," Izzy murmured thoughtfully, eyes scanning the machinery. "Gideon's advantage comes from those robotic dogs. If we can get one operational, we'll have a fighting chance." She led the group deeper into the complex, weaving between skeletal metal frames and long-abandoned control panels. In the far corner, buried beneath debris, Izzy spotted a robotic dog, its matte black finish dulled by years of neglect. She approached cautiously, eyes assessing potential damage. This model looked similar yet older, less sinister, its design suggesting it was built for scouting rather than killing. Carefully, Jasper and Izzy cleared away the debris, revealing more of the robot's form. Izzy examined the machine closely. Its red optical sensors flickered weakly, barely functional, beneath its dented faceplate. Emma knelt nearby, readying her small toolkit, medical supplies, tweezers, and forceps she'd cleverly repurposed for mechanical repairs. Izzy's fingers deftly pried open a panel on the robot side. Inside, intricate circuits lay dormant beneath layers of dust. With quiet precision, she began rewiring the robot's internal structure, her father's rigorous military engineering training guiding her hands confidently. As she worked, Jasper stood vigilantly beside her, glancing warily at the factory's shadowy corners. Movement suddenly caught his attention, and his eyes narrowed sharply. Emerging hesitantly from behind an old conveyor belt was a frail figure, a girl no older than 14. She was thin, her skin pale beneath patches of grime. Her short, messy hair was dark brown, her wide blue eyes filled with apprehension. "Wait," Jasper called gently, holding out his hand reassuringly. "We're not going to hurt you." The girl hesitated but slowly approached, eyes darting fearfully. "I saw you come in," she whispered softly, her voice trembling. "I'm Ellie. I've been hiding here alone since everything went wrong." Emma immediately stepped forward, her maternal instincts taking over. She gently took Ellie's hand, noticing how thin and fragile she felt. "You're safe now," she promised softly. Ellie looked up gratefully, clinging tightly to Emma's comforting presence. Back underground, Walt stood beside the emergency generator, his eyes heavy with worry as its reassuring hum sputtered unevenly. Beside him, Sammy shifted anxiously, glancing nervously upward as though sensing the city's oppressive weight above them. "Grandpa, it won't last long, will it?" Sammy asked quietly. Walt sighed deeply, placing a comforting hand on Sammy's shoulder. "We need replacement parts if we're going to survive another month. The only place left to find them is Sector 9. Sammy's eyes widened fearfully. Sector 9 was notorious. Highly irradiated, littered with unstable ruins and deadly booby traps left by raiders. Yet Walt's determined expression gave no room for debate. "We'll go together," Walt said resolutely. Quickly and quietly. "If we fail, everyone down here will suffer." Sammy swallowed nervously but nodded bravely, taking a deep breath to steel himself for the perilous journey. Above ground, Izzy had finished preparing the robot's internal circuits. With a careful flick of a power switch, the robot jolted slightly, its mechanical limbs twitching. Gradually, its optics glowed steadily, casting a curious red hue. "Let's call him Bolt," Izzy declared with a faint smile, patting the robot's metallic shoulder. Bolt rose shakily to its feet, turning its head slowly as if processing new sensory input. Izzy cautiously gave commands, testing Bolt's responsiveness. Remarkably, the robot obeyed, its previous programming overridden entirely. Ellie stared in wonder, cautiously reaching out to touch Bolt's metal frame. "He won't hurt us?" "Not anymore," Izzy assured confidently. "Bolt's with us now." Jasper nodded approvingly, eyeing their new ally with guarded optimism. Emma glanced back toward their frightened companions, whose morale visibly improved at this newfound hope. Underground, Walt and Sammy emerged cautiously onto the surface, immediately assaulted by oppressive heat and blinding orange glow. Walt wore a tattered radiation suit, Sammy similarly attired but visibly shaking from fear and adrenaline. The eerie silence of Sector 9 hung heavily around them, broken only by the distant creaks and groans of dilapidated structures. Carefully, Walt navigated through heaps of twisted metal and concrete slabs. Sammy stayed close, breathing shallowly through his respirator, eyes scanning fearfully for danger. They moved methodically, focused intently on their desperate mission. Suddenly, Walt halted, his aged eyes narrowing suspiciously at the shadows ahead. 3 raiders stepped abruptly into view, their clothing ragged, faces partially hidden by makeshift gas masks. Their leader, a woman in her mid-40s named Harper, stepped forward confidently. Her tall, lean figure radiated authority despite obvious malnutrition. Short-cropped silver hair framed her stern, intelligent face, her pale blue eyes sharp and wary. "You shouldn't be here, old man," Harper warned, voice calm but firm. "This is our territory." Walt lifted his hands peacefully. "We're just here for spare parts," he pleaded sincerely. "Our air filtration system is failing. We won't survive without replacements." Harper studied Walt carefully, noting the genuine desperation etched deeply in his weathered face. Her eyes softened slightly, remembering painful losses she had suffered herself. After a tense silence, she gestured reluctantly toward a nearby building. "We lost people to those traps," she warned cautiously. "But if you're determined, there are intact filters inside that storehouse. Just watch your step." Walt nodded gratefully. "Thank you." Harper stepped aside quietly, signaling her companions to stand down. Walt carefully led Sammy forward, heart pounding nervously as they approached the derelict building. Gingerly, they navigated the ruins, wary of hidden explosives or structural collapse. After agonizing minutes, Walt found the precious filters, dusty but intact. Relief surged through him as he quickly gathered them into his satchel. Sammy kept watch carefully, his youthful face set determinedly despite the tension. Emerging safely outside, Walt offered Harper a respectful nod. "We owe you our lives." Harper's expression softened momentarily. Survival is everyone's fight now. Returning swiftly underground, Walt and Sammy arrived safely at their refuge, greeted by relieved cheers from anxious survivors. Walt immediately began repairs, his hands steady despite his exhaustion. Back at the military factory, Izzy prepared Bolt for their inevitable confrontation with Gideon. Jasper and Emma fortified their positions, coordinating defenses among the survivors. Ellie clung bravely to Bolt's metal side, gaining confidence from the robot's solid presence. Izzy stood tall amidst her growing resistance, determination blazing fiercely in her emerald eyes. For the first time, victory felt within reach. Izzy's heart pounded steadily as she crept through the labyrinthine alleys toward Gideon's stronghold, the sky above still aglow with its ominous, radioactive orange hue. Behind her moved Bolt, his metal paws producing only the faintest of whispers on the ash-covered streets. Izzy cast a sidelong glance at the robotic dog. Despite his mechanical form, there was an undeniable calmness and reliability emanating from him that reminded her strangely of living, breathing companions from another time. Jasper moved carefully to her right, gripping a makeshift spear, his eyes locked forward in a constant sweep for danger. Emma trailed slightly behind, checking each survivor as they advanced, her gentle presence providing quiet reassurance. Ellie stayed near Bolt, one hand resting lightly on his metal shoulder, drawing courage from the robot's steady gait. They reached the perimeter of Gideon's base, a converted radio tower, looming like a skeletal giant, guarded heavily by mechanical sentinels. Izzy raised her hand sharply, signaling the group to halt. Bolt obediently crouched, optics dimming to minimize visibility. Izzy's eyes narrowed thoughtfully. She had carefully studied Gideon's patterns. The robotic dogs patrolled every 10 minutes, giving them only a narrow window of opportunity. "Bolt," Izzy whispered, placing her hand firmly on the robot's flank. "Can you disable the sentries silently?" Bolt tilted his head slightly, sensors analyzing her request, then gave a single affirmative nod, an oddly human gesture that startled Izzy. Bolt moved forward, sleek black, plating absorbing ambient light, red eyes dimmed to near invisibility. He swiftly reached the sentries, leaping onto the first robot before its sensors detected any threat. With startling efficiency, Bolt expertly disabled its circuitry, sparks flickering briefly before the sentry collapsed silently. Bolt dispatched the second sentry with equal speed, his movements showing increasing fluidity and tactical intuition. Izzy watched with astonishment. The reprogrammed Bolt seemed to learn, adapt, almost emote, a revelation as profound as it was mysterious. Regaining focus, Izzy motioned her team forward. They entered the shadow of the radio tower, the central command clearly visible, pulsating gently with sinister blue energy. Meanwhile, beneath the ruins in Sector 9, Walt stumbled through the rubble, carrying Sammy's weakened form in his frail arms. Blood seeped slowly through Sammy's torn radiation suit, staining Walt's gloves crimson. Sammy had accidentally triggered a hidden trap left behind by desperate raiders, and the jagged debris had left a deep gash in his leg. Walt's heart hammered relentlessly. Desperation etched deeply into every crease of his aged face. His gnarled hands trembled, yet his resolve remained fierce. He wouldn't let his grandson die. "Hang on, Sammy," Walt urged softly, voice rough but comforting. Sammy winced, his pale face contorted with pain beneath the dusty visor of his gas mask. I'm sorry, Grandpa," Sammy murmured weakly, his blue eyes filled with regret and fading determination. Walt tightened his grip, pushing through exhaustion and fear. "None of this is your fault. Just stay with me. We'll make it home." Above ground, Izzy and her group penetrated the heart of Gideon's base. Around them, twisted metallic beams cast eerie shadows, illuminated by the steady, rhythmic glow of the control center. Gideon suddenly emerged from the shadows, his tall figure imposing and sinister. His jet-black hair was slicked back, pale eyes glinting cruelly. Beside him stood two robotic guards, their heavy armor and weaponry intimidating. "You're resourceful, Isabella," Gideon drawled mockingly, eyes narrowing. "But you can't possibly win." Izzy straightened, defiant despite fear clutching her heart. "Your robots have weaknesses, Gideon. Like you." Gideon's eyes hardened dangerously. "We'll see." He snapped his fingers sharply, sending his robots into combat mode. Izzy signaled quickly, and Bolt sprang forward, lunging aggressively at Gideon's mechanical sentries. Bolt's fighting was precise and calculated, yet strangely intuitive, adapting quickly to counter enemy maneuvers. Jasper engaged another robotic attacker, his muscular frame and firefighter strength providing fierce resistance. Emma moved skillfully among the chaos, quickly pulling survivors into cover, bandaging wounds as she went, her composed courage infectious. Ellie remained at Izzy's side, eyes wide with fear, yet refusing to abandon her newfound friends. Bolt, locked in combat, took several damaging hits, sparks flying as robotic claws sliced across his armor plating. Yet, remarkably, he fought with relentless determination. Suddenly, one of Gideon's robots lunged viciously toward Ellie. Bolt's reaction was instantaneous. He leaped protectively between Ellie and danger, absorbing a brutal strike meant for her. The robot dog staggered momentarily, optics flickering wildly, yet managed to retaliate, destroying the attacker. Bolt turned briefly toward Ellie, red optics pulsing softly, almost affectionately, ensuring she was safe before resuming battle. "Bolt," Ellie whispered gratefully, tears streaking her dusty face. "You're more than metal." In the ruins below, Walt reached the outskirts of their underground shelter, Sammy barely conscious. Walt's breath rasped harshly through his mask, muscles quivering with exhaustion. Just ahead, the refuge entrance loomed tantalizingly close. Suddenly, footsteps echoed behind them. Walt spun defensively, his heart sinking at the sight of a shadowy figure. To his relief, Harper emerged from the shadows, silver hair gleaming softly beneath the dim emergency lights. Her expression, usually cold and calculating, softened immediately upon seeing Sammy's injured state. "Let me help," she said quietly, urgently stepping forward. Walt hesitated briefly, instinctively wary but quickly relented, knowing he could not save Sammy alone. Together, Harper and Walt carried Sammy through the final stretch, reaching the shelter's safety. Harper swiftly helped Walt tend to Sammy's wound, her skilled hands surprisingly gentle. Sammy opened his eyes weakly, recognizing Harper. "Thank you," Sammy whispered hoarsely, gratitude shining through his pain. Harper nodded silently, her usually guarded face momentarily vulnerable. Walt placed a grateful hand on her shoulder, the silent acknowledgement of mutual respect passing between them. Back at Gideon's tower, Izzy seized an opening amidst the chaos, sprinting toward the control center. Her fingers flew expertly across panels, hacking furiously. Gideon, noticing too late, shouted desperately, lunging toward her. Jasper intercepted Gideon, wrestling him fiercely, their struggle intense. Emma rushed over to assist Izzy, aiding her final efforts to disrupt the robotic network. Suddenly, all Gideon's robots froze, optics blinking erratically before dimming completely. Bolt staggered, damaged yet intact, approaching Izzy protectively. Gideon's face contorted with disbelief, fury seething beneath his carefully controlled demeanor. "You haven't won yet," he snarled bitterly, retreating swiftly into darkness, vanishing amidst the ruins. Izzy exhaled shakily, adrenaline gradually subsiding. She knelt beside Bolt, examining his wounds carefully. Bolt gently nudged her hand, a strangely affectionate gesture that brought tears to Izzy's eyes. "You're incredible, Bolt," Izzy whispered softly, stroking his damaged plating. "More alive than any of us imagined." Ellie knelt beside them, her gentle touch reassuring the weary survivors. Bolt's optics met Izzy's gaze steadily, communicating a depth of awareness that transcended programming, a newfound humanity born amidst ruin and hope. Below ground, Sammy lay recovering, Walt and Harper seated beside him, silently grateful for survival. Above, Izzy stood amidst the battered battlefield, victorious yet profoundly aware the fight was far from over. Their courage and unity had proven stronger than Gideon's ruthless technology, but the final battle for Radiance was yet to come. Gideon stood atop the charred remains of a skyscraper, the flickering amber glow illuminating his twisted visage. His usual composure was replaced by a stormy madness, eyes ablaze with rage and humiliation. He clenched his fists tightly, knuckles white, trembling with fury as he looked down upon the ruined city. The sky above Radiance pulsed violently, as if mirroring his internal chaos. "Find her," he hissed to the handful of scavengers and robots he had hastily reactivated. "I don't care what it costs. Isabella Rourke must not leave this city alive." Below, amidst crumbling debris and shattered concrete, Izzy guided her exhausted companions swiftly through the tangled maze of rubble-strewn streets. Bolt trotted close to her side, occasionally pausing to sniff for danger, red eyes gleaming dimly in the perpetual dusk. Jasper carried a battered rifle he'd salvaged, face hardened by recent conflict, but eyes still warm with concern. Emma moved carefully behind, limping slightly from a deep gash in her thigh, sustained in their earlier battle, though her determination never wavered. "Izzy," Emma whispered urgently, sensing their pursuit. "Gideon won't stop. We must find a safe place, fast." Izzy nodded grimly. She knew Gideon's thirst for vengeance was insatiable. They had only wounded his pride, and now he would hunt them mercilessly until every last trace of rebellion was crushed. She signaled the group into a narrow alleyway, the towering walls around them bathed in sinister shades of radioactive orange. Bolt paused, raising his metallic head sharply, sensors detecting movement from nearby buildings. Izzy cursed silently, pressing her back against the broken brick wall. Suddenly, a heavy metallic clanging echoed through the alley. A squad of robotic dogs, similar to Bolt but larger and equipped with heavy artillery, appeared at the far end. Their cold red optics scanned methodically, weapons primed and ready. "Run!" Izzy shouted, immediately spinning and leading the frantic retreat. Bolt lunged forward protectively, interposing himself between his human companions and the advancing robots, taking multiple energy blasts as they fled. Izzy glanced back desperately, heart-wrenching as she saw Bolt fiercely holding off their pursuers, buying precious seconds. Tears blurred her vision, but she forced herself forward, Emma and Jasper close behind. They sprinted toward the remnants of an old subway station entrance, crumbling stairs descending into darkness below. Izzy hesitated only briefly before plunging downward, the stifling shadows swallowing them whole. Bolt followed swiftly, damaged limbs sparking erratically, but somehow managing to keep pace. Inside the subway, darkness pressed heavily around them, broken only by faint luminescence from radioactive particles clinging to crumbling walls. Izzy guided the group carefully through the dimly lit tunnels, breath rasping harshly in the claustrophobic gloom. They soon heard heavy footsteps behind them, relentless and ominous. Gideon's scavengers had joined the hunt, driven by the promise of reward and fear of punishment. Emma paused, glancing back fearfully, then squared her shoulders in quiet resolve. "Go," she said softly, her voice thick with determination. "I'll hold them back." Izzy's eyes widened in horror. "Emma, no." Emma smiled sadly, placing a comforting hand briefly on Izzy's shoulder. "You're the leader we need, Izzy. Let me do this, please. For all of us." Before Izzy could protest further, Emma stepped bravely into the tunnel entrance, firing her weapon defiantly at their pursuers. Jasper's face twisted in anguish, but he swiftly grasped Izzy's arm, forcing her onward through her resistance. "Don't let her sacrifice be in vain," Jasper whispered harshly, pain raw in his voice. From behind, sounds of fierce gunfire filled the tunnels, Emma's defiant cries mingling tragically with mechanical growls and screams of wounded scavengers. Izzy blinked tears away fiercely, promising silently that Emma's courage wouldn't be forgotten. Back underground in their shelter, Walt wiped his soot-covered hands, standing back to survey his handiwork. The filtration system hummed gently, bringing clean air to the grateful survivors around him. Sammy sat nearby, leg bandaged but healing well, his pale face breaking into a weak smile. "We did it, Grandpa," Sammy whispered, pride evident despite his exhaustion. Walt clasped Sammy's shoulder firmly, feeling profound relief and renewed hope flooding through him. However, their victory was quickly overshadowed as Harper approached hurriedly, her normally composed expression stricken with worry. She had recently become an invaluable ally, now trusted by Walt implicitly. "Radio contact," Harper explained urgently, her voice tense. Izzy and the others, they're pinned down, trapped beneath Sector 7. Gideon's closing in. Walt paled visibly, glancing at the other residents who crowded anxiously around. "We must act quickly. If Gideon catches them, none of us are safe." Harper nodded decisively. "I've prepared a small rescue party. We'll move swiftly." Walt turned back to Sammy, his expression conflicted. "Stay here, Sammy," he urged quietly. But Sammy shook his head stubbornly, eyes shining with determination. "I'm coming. I owe it to Izzy." Seeing Sammy's unwavering resolve, Walt relented, pride warring with apprehension. "All right, stay close, Sammy." Minutes later, Harper, Walt, and Sammy emerged cautiously onto the surface, joining a small group of grim-faced survivors ready for combat. Walt breathed heavily beneath his mask, gripping a sturdy wrench in hand as they hurried towards Sector 7. Deep beneath the ruined city, Izzy and Jasper finally reached a collapsed maintenance room, a dead end filled with broken equipment. Bolt limped inside, his metallic body riddled with damage yet still functional. Izzy knelt, examining Bolt tenderly, heart aching at his battered condition. "Thank you, Bolt," she whispered softly, voice choked with emotion. Bolt's red optics flickered briefly, almost gently, as if reassuring her that he'd done his duty willingly. Suddenly, footsteps echoed close by, Gideon's triumphant voice resonating down the tunnel. "Nowhere to run now, Isabella. It's over." Izzy steadied her breathing, eyes fierce with determination. She glanced at Jasper, who nodded gravely, weapon ready. Izzy stepped forward to confront Gideon, standing proudly amidst the darkness, eyes blazing with defiance. "You'll never break us, Gideon," Izzy declared firmly, voice unwavering despite her grief. Gideon sneered, advancing menacingly. "You've already lost too much, Isabella. Surrender now, or watch everyone you love die." Before he could finish his threat, distant gunfire erupted, followed by frantic shouting. Gideon spun in surprise as Harper's group attacked fiercely from behind, the tunnel suddenly filled with chaos. Harper, lithe and determined, silver hair streaked with soot, led the assault valiantly, firing relentlessly at Gideon's stunned forces. Seizing their opportunity, Izzy and Jasper surged forward, battling furiously alongside Harper's rescue team. Walt and Sammy fought courageously as well, Sammy moving cautiously yet determinedly, firing at Gideon's scattered forces. Amidst the chaos, Gideon withdrew hastily, fury radiating from him. "This isn't finished," he snarled bitterly before vanishing again into darkness. Izzy sagged briefly against Jasper, relief and exhaustion warring within her. She quickly composed herself, moving among the survivors, bolstering spirits despite heavy losses. Harper approached quietly, eyes respectfully meeting Izzy's. "Emma gave her life bravely," Izzy said softly, grief evident in her voice. Harper nodded solemnly. "Her sacrifice won't be forgotten." Together, the survivors regrouped beneath the flickering radioactive skies, wounded but unbroken, determined to continue fighting. Bolt moved slowly to Izzy's side, damaged yet loyal, a quiet strength radiating from him. Izzy knelt, hand resting gently on Bolt's battered plating. "We'll rebuild," she promised solemnly, eyes fierce and resolute. "We'll honor Emma's memory by surviving. Gideon will never win." Bolt's optics glowed softly in silent agreement, an unspoken promise made amidst the ashes, a testament to human resilience and hope forged in darkness. The sky above Radiance blazed vividly, painted in shades of molten amber and burning gold, heralding a dawn unlike any the survivors had seen before. The acrid scent of ash hung thick in the cool morning air, mingled with an undercurrent of nervous anticipation. Today would mark the end, one way or another. Izzy stood on the edge of what once was the city's bustling central square, now reduced to fractured pavements and skeletal remains of skyscrapers. Her dark hair was matted with dirt and blood, face etched with lines of fatigue, yet her eyes blazed fiercely with determination. She surveyed the surroundings carefully, noticing every tactical detail. Beside her stood Bolt, his metallic body recently patched and reinforced by Jasper's careful hands. Despite the deep scratches and scorches marring his sleek black frame, his scarlet optics glowed steady, a beacon of unyielding loyalty. The square filled rapidly with the enemy ranks, an imposing army of Gideon's lethal canine machines, standing rigidly at attention, their weapons primed. At their forefront stood Gideon himself, clad in battered battle gear, his pale face twisted into a grim mask of contemptuous superiority. Behind him were clusters of scavengers and raiders, men and women emboldened by fear rather than loyalty. Isabella Rourke, Gideon called mockingly across the expanse of destruction, voice dripping venom. "You've delayed your fate long enough. Look around, this is your tomb." Izzy stepped forward calmly, meeting Gideon's cruel gaze without flinching. "You're wrong, Gideon. This isn't our tomb. It's our rebirth." At her words, figures emerged from alleyways and rubble-strewn streets, stepping purposefully toward the center square. Walt strode resolutely forward, his tall frame straight despite age and weariness, leading a determined force of survivors. Sammy marched beside him, his limp now negligible, eyes shining with pride and newfound courage. Dozens followed closely, men and women armed with makeshift weapons, their faces concealed behind gas masks and helmets, but their eyes alight with defiance. Harper moved agilely alongside them, her silver hair catching fragments of sunlight, eyes narrowed fiercely, ready to defend those she had come to cherish. Realizing Izzy's allies had multiplied, Gideon's confidence faltered slightly, but he quickly masked it with an arrogant sneer. He waved dismissively, signaling his robotic minions to advance. Immediately, the sleek black canine robots surged forward, mechanical limbs thundering across the cracked pavement, red eyes gleaming mercilessly. "Now!" Walt shouted, his voice resonating clearly above the chaos. Instantly, Sammy sprinted to the remnants of an old control station nestled amidst rubble. With practiced precision, he began swiftly reconnecting cables, sweat beading on his youthful forehead as he activated dormant generators. Lights blinked hesitantly on a control panel. "Come on, Sammy," Walt murmured tensely, standing protectively close. "You've got this." At the forefront of battle, Izzy, Jasper, Harper, and Bolt confronted Gideon's forces head-on. The metallic dogs lunged aggressively, their jaws snapping with lethal intent, energy weapons blasting relentlessly. Bolt fought ferociously, his movements swift and precise despite his damaged condition. He tackled enemy units, tearing them apart with powerful, determined blows. Izzy fired expertly with her battered rifle, covering Bolt while Jasper wielded an improvised blade, slicing through wires and metal with desperate courage. Yet Gideon himself had not yet entered the fray. He watched carefully, assessing weaknesses with calculating eyes. Spotting Izzy momentarily vulnerable, he charged forward, knife flashing dangerously. Bolt, sensing the immediate threat, reacted with lightning speed, leaping in front of Izzy just as Gideon struck. Gideon's blade lodged deep into Bolt's armored chassis, sparks erupting violently. "Bolt!" Izzy cried out, voice ragged with anguish. She responded instantly, lunging at Gideon with fierce, unbridled fury. Their confrontation was brutal, fists and blades clashing repeatedly amidst flying debris and chaotic sounds of battle. Meanwhile, Sammy's fingers danced rapidly over the control panel, heart pounding with urgency. "It's online," he shouted, his voice triumphant yet strained. Walt activated a final switch, and a powerful hum reverberated beneath the city. Seconds later, hidden defensive turrets emerged from concealed compartments scattered around the square, locking onto the mechanical dogs and firing systematically. Chaos overtook Gideon's robotic army as the powerful turrets cut them down efficiently, mechanical parts scattering across the pavement. Survivors cheered, emboldened by their sudden advantage. The tides of battle shifted dramatically. Gideon stumbled backward, fury turning to disbelief. "Impossible," he snarled. "You can't defeat me, not you." Izzy's eyes blazed defiantly. "You underestimated us, Gideon. You underestimated humanity." With a powerful thrust, she knocked Gideon's weapon away, sending him sprawling. He collapsed heavily, stunned and defeated. Around them, the last of Gideon's robotic forces collapsed, silenced forever. The remaining scavengers, seeing their leader beaten, threw down their weapons in surrender. Izzy breathed deeply, feeling the crushing weight of responsibility finally begin to ease. She turned swiftly, rushing to Bolt's damaged body. Kneeling beside him, her hand trembled as she touched his battered frame. "You saved me, Bolt," she whispered softly, eyes glistening. "Thank you. I promise. We'll rebuild together." Bolt's red optics flickered weakly, his head moving faintly in acknowledgement. Despite being machine, the gesture was unmistakably tender. Slowly, the survivors gathered around, battle-worn yet triumphant. Walt and Sammy approached, relief clear on their faces. Sammy's gaze lingered admiringly on Bolt. "We can fix him," he assured gently. "He'll recover." Izzy smiled gratefully at Sammy's words. She stood tall amidst the ruins, looking at the brave, hopeful faces surrounding her. They had lost much: Emma, friends, their past, but not their spirit. Radiance, though broken, could live again. Gideon, defeated and subdued, glowered silently from where he knelt, bound tightly. His power was broken, his reign of terror ended. Harper approached quietly, placing a reassuring hand on Izzy's shoulder. "You've given us hope, Izzy. Radiance owes you a debt." Izzy shook her head humbly. "We did this together." Emma, her voice broke briefly, and everyone else who gave everything. They made this possible. Above them, the fiery sky began to clear, hints of pure, untainted daylight filtering through the polluted atmosphere for the first time since the war. Survivors gazed upward in awe, hope swelling within their hearts. Walt smiled gently, breathing deeply of air suddenly fresher, cleaner. "It's a new dawn," he murmured warmly, drawing Sammy close. Izzy stepped forward, Bolt at her side, looking resolutely toward the distant horizon. They had survived darkness, betrayal, and sacrifice. Now, united by bonds stronger than steel, they would rebuild from the ashes, honoring the fallen and forging a new future together. We'll make Radiance live again, Izzy vowed solemnly. For Emma. For all of us. As morning broke gently over Radiance, hope took root amidst the ruins, nourished by sacrifice, courage, and unyielding human spirit. The survivors stood together, facing their future with resolve, knowing that no challenge could ever truly break them again. In the end, the story of Izzy, Bolt, and the brave survivors of Radiance teaches us something profound. No matter how dark our world may seem, courage, unity, and hope can always guide us to the light. Just like Izzy, who never gave up despite overwhelming odds, we too can face our everyday struggles with bravery, faith, and determination. If you found yourself inspired by this story, please share your thoughts below in the comments. Let's create a community of strength and support together. And don't forget to subscribe to our channel for more stories that uplift the heart and nourish the spirit. May God bless you all, guide you through your challenges, and fill your days with hope. If you believe in strength through faith and community, comment amen.